What's up, dudes? HW here, just jamming to a little, what's that? Little 4-4-3-2 little groove. You don't play that a lot, the old 4-3-2. I never end up playing that one, but it's got a cool sound. You know, you come up with a cool melody and you do a thing. Now, I played a couple different effects there to get a couple different tones, but I didn't change the profile. I just changed some overdrives. And I got a question on Facebook, and it said, HW, can you tell me about some of the effects you put in on the Match Brave pack? And I thought that's a really good like video topic, because I tend to put a lot of the same effects on almost all the profile packs. Now, I'll tell you why that is, and kind of why they change over time slowly, is I usually just pull over all the effects from the old pack into a new pack. And then if there's something that I want to do differently, I dial it in. So they sort of stay constant, but every pack or two that gets released, there'll be a little change and a little change and a little change. And then I'll often change the reverb depending on, if it's like a Fender, like an old Fender, I'll put spring reverb, of course. But if it's like a Marshall, and if it's just even a Vox, I tend to go with Hall. I've always been a Hall reverb guy. Plate sounds really good on a lot of things, but I've always gone towards a Hall. I like the Hall room natural sound. I just think that's really cool. So I thought it would be cool to take this this pretty awesome pack, this Match Brave pack, and just run through some of the effects. But this kind of serves as the effects that go on any of the Tone Junkie packs and how I think about them and how I might look at them. So first things first is I get this question a lot. There's a compressor. My compressor is sort of meant to be an always on type thing, and it's one of those compressors where it's like, if you dig it, cool. If you don't, go ahead and take it off. I think playing with a little compression on the guitar is always a bit more fun. I like compression in pickups. I think it's a great thing. Even single coils that have a wide open top end and stuff, I think sound great with just a little bit of evened out dynamics, and it's really fun to play that way. Your miles may vary. I like this compressor. Turn it up or down at your discretion. Not much more to say. Okay, so for my first overdrive, I'm kind of playing like a cleanish profile. This is Match Brave 2. Little hair on it, you know, if I go to the bridge, I'm starting to get some hair on it, right? But what's cool about this sound is I can kind of drive it a little. But if I don't do that, and I just like, you know, go to the middle, play lightly, even if I back it down a little bit on the volume here, I get a real nice clean. Okay, very cool. Now, if I turn on my little Klon style Kemper drive here, I think you get a really cool voice and a little extra mid-range that you don't normally get, and I really like to use it in this way. It's still clean. I'm really not pushing a lot of drive into it with this Klon. You hear that extra warmth, that extra mid-range? Here's with it off. Then you get a little just fullness there, upper mids. But it gives it a really beautiful voice to sort of come through. Now, if I go up without it on, I can get that drive, you know. With the Klon, it's just kind of, it gives you more of what's already there. It is adding some drive, but I don't really think of it as a drive pedal. I think of it more as like a voice boost pedal. And in my head, I just know what it's going to sound like before I turn it on, you know? So, you know, a little intro jam. Okay, so starting with the Klon off, it sounds like this. Now with it on. So to me, that's a pretty big difference. It's something that, you know, I don't want to say like get headphones because you can't hear it without it, but you know, on something small like an iPhone, it might not really, that upper mid-range might not come through enough to really appreciate it. But if you listen on anything kind of bigger than that, I think you're going to really notice it. And that's a really good type of sound. The other thing I go for is in C, I usually go for like the old school green scream, yeah, in a Kemper. And that's like the tube screamer. So without it, it sounds like this. But with it, it sounds like this. And it's a lot less subtle. It's just very like honky, mid-rangey, very much like a megaphone. I dig that. So again, doing that little intro jam without it, it sounds like this. Whoops, sorry, I don't know how to work a Kemper. It sounds like this. And with it, you know, what's interesting about the tube screamer is you hear that dissonance I'm getting. I'm getting a little bit of that. It's not as nice and polite and pretty. It gets a little ugly. You know, that cone cry dissonance kind of thing happens. It's just like a sound because it's very like congested and like murky in the mid-range. But it comes through like a megaphone, and it's very vocal. And if you play it vocal, that's what I love it for, you know? It sounds like a cry, you know? And there's a bit of the Clapton woman tone, you know? You know what I mean? Like you really, I could take the volume or the tone all the way back. You know, that's pretty exaggerated. That's almost like a fuzz, like gating, you know, kind of thing, but that's it's a cool sound there, you know? And but maybe something more usable like this. That's also a cool sound. So I like to be able to get those textures and get those colors. Now, for the next effect, it's a bit of an EQ, and it looks like this. Okay, so in slot D, I usually use, sometimes if it's like a very clean amp, like it's a twin or something, I'll put in another like drive here, where it's like a King of Tone style drive. And then I'll use the green screen and the clon type thing to push into it. So I would treat this like the gain that I would be getting from the amp if it were a dirtier amp. Usually that's not the case. And so usually I'm putting in this EQ. Now this EQ is kind of designed to make things sound just a little more Fendery and a little more clear. And I think it's a really cool EQ. I use the graphic equalizer. And without it, it sounds like this. This is already a Fendery guitar, but here's the neck pickup, you know? So you can hear single notes and chords there are warm, they're nice, they're lovely. When I turn this on, less low mids. I've taken away the very, very deep end, but I don't think there's a lot of that to begin with in the pickups. And really remember what I'm doing by putting this EQ before the amp section and after my guitar. It's really in a position where I view it as editing my pickups. So what I'm trying to do is take out low mids. I'm trying to add a little bit of high-end sizzle and turn these P90s, which are already technically single coils, into even more single coily goodness. So now it sounds like this. That to me is just a little more of a good thing. And so I can even push things kind of going into that. Like if I want this clon on, you can hear the difference now even here as well. With that EQ. It just is meant to make it a little pokier, and it's really something that you can adjust for the guitar. This is already a guitar that's in the middle. If it were humbuckers, I would subtract even more of that low mid-range. I would push up even more of the highs to get a little more of a nice sparkling thing. But I think it's really useful. For me, for the other ones, here's like just an EQ that I turn on all the time. It's the X EQ. It's actually adding some like 100, and it's adding 2 mid-range spots, which I think are really good to cut through the mix. Try it in a mix. The rest are just like delay and verb, and I always put on a little chorus. Here's a little trick that I do. It's kind of an always-on chorus. I'll show you. Just take your chorus and adjust it so the mix is like between 40 and 50%. Now this should give you like an "Is It There" kind of chorus. To me, that tone just sounds a little sweeter. Let me go back to my single coily type of little boost here. Now you can hear that's a little bit of chorus. But I promise you, when other things start playing, you really don't notice it that much. You can even turn it down to like 35 or so. But it's the type of thing that even when you add a little dirt, let me turn it down to like 35. 36 is close enough. And it becomes like this always-on sweetener that you don't notice till it's gone. Did you hear I turned it off? So like chords sound like this with it on. And now taking away just a little bit of the sweetness. It's addicting to play with that on. And so turning it on, get you a little secret. There's a video of Joe Bonamassa doing a Premier guitar rundown, like rig rundown. And at one point, you know, it's not Jason Shatter, it's the other guy, the tall, lanky guy, you know, Nashville, really great player. It's him, and he's saying, "Hey, can you show me the sounds of the different amps?" And Joe starts like tapping on his like little setup there, and it starts turning amps on and off. And at one point, he isolates just the bassmen, and the bassmen have a pretty thick chorus on them, and the other amps didn't. And it's this type of thing. You know, maybe those bassmen were only 30% of his tone, but they were lower, mid-range, cleaner, and so he's stacking a Silver Jubilee and a Dumble or a Van Wielden or whatever on top of that. And so it creates this type of effect, this always-on chorus that you don't really notice till it's off. And it's beautiful. Anyway, that's kind of some of the effects that I put on the old Kemper profiles there.